Hello, I'm Nixia, and it's been a while. To put that very, very mildly. I have decided to record this because this is Dwarf Fortress, and it's been so silly and strange that it needed to be documented. So, Dwarf Fortress, I originally didn't want to play this game because it was in ASCII graphics. It was free, it's still free, and it was just provided as such a difficult game. You needed all these extra things to play it, to be able to manage your fort, and it was just a bit too intimidating for me. So until the paid version came out, I had decided against it. I don't need to go back to the world of ASCII graphics, thank you very much. And I watched other people playing this and I was like, oh wait, this is actually a really good game, and I now see why people play it. But this is the fort that should not be. This is the fort that should have failed. Ever since the inception of this particular fort, it has had a variety of difficulties, mostly caused by me, that should have caused this fort to fail multiple times. For whatever reason, it has not. It has now reached what I can only describe as a kind of boiling point. This fort is going to fail sooner rather than later, based on what's happening right now, because some of my people have been very angry for a very long time, for justifiable reasons. So I'm just going to explain all the strange things that have happened since I started this fort, and why we have reached a point of no return. I don't know what to do with this game now and this particular fort. I can't save it, I don't think. I have tried. I think this is the end of this fort. So for those of you who know Dwarf Fortress and the delightful new UI it has, now that it has real graphics, don't spoil it for the other people as to some of the things that have happened, because they are very obvious from the UI. But this is the embark point where I start, and I did make a mistake even during embark, where I decided it would be great if I embarked onto a wild biome, which is slightly more dangerous than a standard biome, but not very. So it's more dangerous. The only issue I had with it was the ambient sound in this area is wolves howling constantly, repeatedly, over and over and over again. And I thought I was going to lose my mind. It did eventually fade, I think because my fort got so big. But yeah, that wasn't a great start. I also decided, yet again, to embark onto a light aquifer. And if you're not familiar with Dwarf Fortress, don't do this. Don't put yourself onto a light aquifer. They are annoying. There are ways to get around them, but it's still super annoying. And just, it's ridiculous. So that was also a mistake. You'll see why that's a mistake later on. There are heavy aquifers in Dwarf Fortress, and quite frankly, I don't know why they exist. It's a little bit of a problem here. I apparently have a goblin scholar in my fortress. That's interesting to know. Doing research apparently isn't bad. We're going to ignore all of these things that this goblin has seen. We'll get to that. I also thought it would be great to just, right at the bottom of the map to put this. Why didn't I put it in the middle or somewhere safer? I don't know. I chose not to. Again, a lot of choices at the beginning of this fort really did not help the situation in the slightest. Thankfully, most things like to attack me from the top of the map. Small mercies, I guess. So this is my trading post. This is my army of dogs. And in my defense, animal management does require you to cull your animals quite often, and eventually I just gave up in culling them. They're very good for defensive purposes, for people stealing things out of your fortress. So that was my thought process. They live here now. It's fine, I'm sure. And also one of my stockpiles that was meant for my bracelet problem. When your fort gets to a certain size, you have to nominate a dwarf to be in charge. They then start making demands because they are nobility. And my noble just likes bracelets and literally nothing else. And so continually demands the production of bracelets. And then promptly tells me that I can't sell them. So I have a lot of bracelets in my fortress. And dwarves, when they haul things, if they see something sufficiently shiny, they will take it for themselves. It's how they acquire items. There doesn't seem to be an easier way of getting them to acquire items themselves. You just kind of have to force them to haul items in the hope that they will take stuff. It's a strange system. So this was a work in progress when I decided enough was enough. And this we can safely describe as, oh my god, get it off the wagon. When you first start, you have a wagon full of stuff. You need to get it downstairs so your dwarfs can actually use it. So these are my initial, oh my god, stockpiles that have gotten bigger as time has gone on. A word of note though, this is Dwarf Fortress. These are not big enough. These are nowhere near big enough for an active fort in Dwarf Fortress, so be warned. These look like big stockpiles. They are not. My army, my little squads, they live here too. And that is because everything attacks me from above. And I thought it would be much easier if they just stayed up here. And anytime I need them to defend my fort, they don't have to travel very far. So that also means all of their equipment, should they feel like using it, is up here too. Great place for it. And just rocks. Just rocks because there's so many. It's out of control. It's not the most out of control thing I have in my fort, but it's up there. And we're going to ignore this object here for now. It does matter. I'm using it for something. Yes, you're all very sad. But we'll get back to what that is later. These are my workshops. This is not very well designed. I did what I could. You have some more rocks because, again, this is Dwarf Fortress. You're digging. This over here. So you need certain items for crafting. Some of them are quite hard to get. In the previous fort, I didn't have shells of any kind, which are these. They can only be get from fishing. You can't trade for them or anything like that. I had 0 because I didn't have a river on my previous fort. One of my dwarves acquired it for a strange mood. And yeah, that didn't end well. So this fort, the game decided I really needed all of the shells. Every shell it could think of, I now own. I've been trying to get through the stockpile of them, trying to get rid of them, and you can see my success rate is mixed. I've also now added things like bones and hooves to the mix. Again, you need to cull your animals every once in a while. This is where they end up. I'm sorry. I have multiples of our workshops because, again, the strange moods, they will take your workshop for themselves, not for a very long time, but essentially no other dwarf can use it during a strange mood. It is a little annoying, and this is the way around it, is to have more than one of some of these particular types of workshops. And it just helps later on when you automate things, because then orders can be split between multiple workshops. This is all my forging stuff, all my smelting, all that type of thing. I've even got a siege workshop because I had grand ideas. I really did. Oh dear. So much for the grand ideas. This is all the food related stuff and farming. Things like the stills for alcohol, clothing making. Lots of barrels of things. It's a bit excessive. There's also farming here. These are far too big. I would say definitely these don't need to be anywhere near this big to sustain your dwarves. If you can look at how many seeds I have up here and how much food. Yikes. No. And my hospital is up here. Again, clever planning. They're going to get hurt upstairs. Why not just put the hospital in an easy to access place? And I put the well right in the middle of the path because I don't know what I was thinking during this build. I really don't. I would like to ask my past self what on earth I was considering. I don't have an answer for that. And again, we'll ignore this very bizarre looking structure because we will get back to that. And then we have the bedrooms. There's a lot of bedrooms here because I have 150 dwarves. I have actually capped my population at 150. The default cap is 200 dwarves. That is a lot of dwarves for a single colony, single fortress. And why does it look so strange? Well, remember what I said about there being aquifers? This is what your aquifer does. This is a light aquifer. It is intensely annoying. It just causes all sorts of problems, and yes, you can place blueprints before you dig. Yeah, it's just incredibly frustrating. You can now see why I placed my well where I did, because the light aquifer just made my life difficult. It's annoying, so my rooms are dotted absolutely everywhere. I've been trying to improve their bedrooms with items, so the cabinets and the chests for their various personal items that they like to store. Otherwise, as you can see, they just fling their clothes everywhere. They take the clothes off when they're not good enough quality, and they just shove them on the floor. So that is what the cabinets and the chests are for, is to try and clean up that clutter. Again, with mixed success. It also makes them happier to have better bedrooms with better items in. I have been trying to make my dwarves happy. Some of my dwarves, as you can see up here, are not happy. There's a reason for that. We'll get to that. And what's below this is my guilds and my nobles. So you have things like bookkeepers, managers. They manage your fortress for you. Bookkeepers keep an eye on your stock numbers. Before you have one of them, it's very estimated. And the values of items as well. So they need particularly larger rooms, nicer rooms. These are engraved. So I've actually smoothed out the floors and the walls and then engraved them to make them nicer. You can use metal to make them even nicer than that. And there's some water in places, just, you know, don't look too closely. And these are guild halls that they've asked for. So we have things like a farmer's guild. This is a crafting guild, and I have some other guilds in progress. Down here, they will sometimes ask you to make them a guild hall. Buyer beware, if you agree, the pop-up will disappear, and there will be no reminders as to which guild hall you were supposed to make. Make a note of it before you agree to make one. So that is them, and let me see what else have I got next. I have my temples. I have things like the dining hall for them to eat, the tavern for people to socialize, and mostly I have lots and lots of different temples because they like to pray. It makes them happy. I want my dwarfs to be happy, please. And again, you can make them nice by engraving them. I have cheated here, I will be honest. When dwarves are in strange moods, they make artifacts. They make nice items. And these items are worth much more than anything else in your fortress. So I have a table that is worth 2,000 of the currency sitting on a pedestal. It is a table. This has an item on it. You can't even see it. It is worth nearly 3,000. So I cheated with these temples to increase their value because their value changes what they are. So you can cheat it by doing this, by including this little pedestal area. They can't get to it. This is a glass window, so they can see the item. They cannot access it. People cannot steal it, I hope. That's to be confirmed. And again, makes nice, big, happy, beautiful temples for them. Tavern, probably shouldn't have built it down here. Your visitors will sometimes steal your things, like these artifacts, and chasing them down is a pain. It is extremely difficult to catch them. And the bit that I was dreading, so I capped my population It was almost 150. I decided to cap it because I was getting nervous. And then the game had some fun for me. The game decided I should have a Titan arrive. My very first Titan in-game was made out of metal. It was made entirely of metal and nothing else. My dwarves did absolutely nothing to it. So I chickened out, and that is the first true failure of this fortress. It should have failed when that Titan arrived. My dwarves should have all died. They didn't because I reset the game. I went back to my last save, knowing fine well, the game was not going to be that kind. It was not going to keep that status quo. I was going to get another Titan. I did. I had almost 150 dwarves. My second Titan was not made out of metal, but he did provide me with silk, which was very handy, because I didn't have any. But he also wiped out my population. I went from almost 150 dwarves to, I believe it was 81. 81 dwarves. It was a bit of a blow. And that is why this place exists. I'm so sorry that this place exists. Welcome to Dwarf Fortress, and this is what happens to your fortress. So, this isn't just because of this Titan. I've had other goblin invaders and things like that, because again, this isn't a particularly safe biome. I do have goblins quite close, so they do invade every once in a while. So this isn't just because of the Titan, but most of this is because of the Titan. This is about roughly 100 graves. I had to make my dwarves build 100 different graves. Not joking. So yes, there's lots of people residing in these graves. It made people very unhappy. It made me very unhappy too, because I made a grave mistake. And this isn't a fortress ending mistake, but if you're going to play Dwarf Fortress, I highly recommend that you nickname every single one of your dwarves. Every time you get a new set of dwarf immigration, change their names. Because I didn't. I kept all of their stock names. And that's a problem. That's a really big problem. Because I have 204 corpses on my map. So that includes upstairs. If you go back to the start, you'll see some of things still sitting up there. Just chilling, just staying right there. And this is what the corpse stocks list looks like. This is a nightmare. Because I would like to ask you, can you identify a dwarf in any of these 200 entries? And these include things like random animals that have died on the map. So this is what you have to deal with. If a lot of dwarves die at once, you have to deal with this. And you have to work out which of these is your dwarves and which of these are just random other people. Because it tends to be forbidden by default, and you need to unforbid the corpses that you want to bury. Good luck. I mean, honestly, good luck. You need it if you make the same mistake I did. This should be organized differently. I wish it was. I wish there were different entries for animal corpses, because again, stray cat, just a stray cat. I wish it was separated out by animal corpses and things like fortress dweller corpses or some other entry to separate out your dwarves from other creatures. Because there are other creatures. There's also invading dwarves. So just because it's a dwarf corpse doesn't mean it's yours. So this makes burying the dead very difficult. So yes, having to have corpses rotting away all over the place, all over my map, did not make my dwarves happy. The other issue is the when the dwarves fight, sometimes they leave more than just a body behind. Sometimes they like to leave bits, like just a part of your leg. Those bits also need to be buried alongside the rest of the corpse, or it makes the dwarves unhappy. And I've got over 200 body parts on my map. And a lot of these, as you can see, are actually just items that are in my stockpiles. But then there's things like people's toes, a hand, an arm, a foot. There's also things like teeth. Yep, see, there's a tooth right there. Just somebody's tooth. Got knocked out while they were fighting. This game is amazing. To have this level of detail is just completely insane, especially when you're talking about 100 plus dwarves and every other creature as well. Yes, so this is what should have ended my fortress. For some reason it didn't. My fortress still survived after this. It was still going. I still had people migrating into my fort despite this. I think that's part of what saved it, is the people coming in are happy, and that seems to have offset a lot of my angry dwarves. Not all of them though, as you can probably tell. I still have 8 extremely angry people. Most of these are probably dwarven children. Most of these are dwarven children. And peasants and other people that I've just been completely incapable of making happy. And this is where these structures come in. This is a screw pump. It takes liquid from the lower level up to your current level. And it is meant for moving things like water and lava. Yes, you can move lava in this game. You just need to use lava-safe materials when making your pumps. Doing it like this, and you can see I have it flicking back and forth between the levels. This is a screw pump thing, which I've forgotten the name of right now. But this is a pump stack. This is a pump stack. It just moves liquid up, 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 and up at the very top here. This is the topmost pump. And what it should do, theoretically, is if I can get water up to this level, pump it through this pump, it drops down my stairs. If it drops down the stairs, it becomes mist. And dwarves really like waterfalls and mist. It makes them happy. It cleans them if they walk through mist. So it is worthwhile to make a structure, if you have a water source of some kind, to make your dwarves happy like this. This is what I was attempting to do while all of this other stuff was happening in the background, and dwarves continued to come back to my fortress despite everything that was happening. And then it got to the point where I was almost at 150 again. I was at 148. Everything was coasting. And then I became the capital of the Dwarven Kingdom. My fortress is the capital of the Dwarven Kingdom because the current leader decided to move in. So this is absurd. As you can see, my wealth is absolutely bonkers. That is the reason why so many people decided to come, because I kept trading and trading my wealth, which they then communicate outside of your fortress to other colonies. And I was trading with humans, I was trading with elves, and basically everybody was like, this place has so much wealth, it must be amazing. You don't want to tell them the truth, do you? So they decided to move in. So I have all of these people that are here to run my fortress. So a doctor, a broker for trading, a bookkeeper, a manager for your automated tasks, all of these things. I have a mayor. I have my duchy. So my person who adores bracelets, who has forbidden their trade again. I have my mayor who was voted in. I have a elected official in my fortress who's obsessed with grapes. So that's not bad, actually. And they don't mind if you use them in the fortress. I don't think they're very happy if they're destroyed or traded, but anything else seems to be okay. And then my queen, who apparently likes catapult parts. Because she does. So yes, the queen and her consort arrived as the last two dwarves, and I couldn't believe it. I was just beside myself, and I thought, this is completely ridiculous. My fortress is in shambles, and you moved in and decided to make it your home. Good luck, because you need it. It was ridiculous, and unfortunately so many of my dwarves are still very unhappy. My dwarven children in particular are becoming depressed because they have been upset for so long, and that's when I realised I was stuck. And I didn't really know how to progress. I need to make, as you can see, some of these people happy. They have additional room requirements as nobles, hence the bigger rooms downstairs. And you need to add all these items that they want. So weapon racks, chests, cabinets, all these things. They love having extra things. You want 5 weapon racks and 10 chests. It's absurd. Absurd requirements. And yes, between the unhappiness that I cannot fix and the queen moving in, I realised that, there wasn't much more I could do. I'm literally the capital of the Dwarven Kingdom, which I have to laugh every time I say that because it's completely ridiculous. It is just the reason why I wanted to commemorate this fortress by recording it, because you cannot make this up. From losing a massive chunk of my population to a singular titan, and then to become the capital of the kingdom, is just one of these things in colony management games that you just cannot make up. You just cannot, in your wildest dreams, come up with these stories on your own. These types of games just make these stories work somehow in ways that you would never have expected. And I did really enjoy this fort. It lasted for 9 years, which was remarkably well. It probably still could continue, but I am genuinely worried that my angry dwarves are finally going to tip the balance against me and bring this fort down around itself. But yeah, it's been fun. It's crazy. It's much like any other colony management game. It gets crazy. The sheer volume of people, the sheer things like automation. You can automate work orders, and then you end up with a screen like this of all the things your dwarves just make without you telling them. You can tell them how often to make these things. You can do them as one-off orders. You can set restrictions on them. It's a big part of making your fortress work as it gets larger. It is absolutely crazy. It is just an unbelievable game, just so complicated. It is no less complicated than it was in its original format. It's just easier to look at. And I think that's the main difference. So yeah, I am sorry. This has been a long time coming. I know I stopped recording videos. I got a full-time job. And while I love having full-time employment, it has removed any time and energy away from me that I would use to record. I've been putting this video off actually for quite a while for the same reason. I just haven't had the time or the energy to record it. I finally bit the bullet, managed to get OBS working eventually, and at some point hopefully this video will go live and you can all enjoy the absolutely ridiculous nature of this game. It is amazing. If you like colony management, this is colony management to the nth degree. It is absurd. It is wonderful. It is crazy. And the tagline is, losing is fun. This fort is lost. It finally, I think, has done its time. It needs to retire. And I need to move on to other fortresses where I don't make these mistakes. And hopefully now that you've watched this, you also will not make some of these mistakes like I did. But yes, thank you so much for watching this. I'm so sorry that I've been neglectful of this channel. The hard drive with all of my YouTube related stuff on it died a death. I had to rebuild my computer. A lot has happened. A lot has happened. So thank you to anybody and everybody who watches. I just appreciate each and every one of you so, so much. So thank you very much. And I will see you again another time. Goodbye.